Namaste. Welcome. Thanks for joining me for some yoga today. Do you find yourself sitting like this? Is your back, your hips, your legs aching from poor sitting posture or for just too much sitting? Maybe you're sitting at your desk, working at the computer, playing a game on your phone, or maybe even sitting in the car for too long. Well, I have a suggestion. Let's take a moment to do some movement that will relieve your back, your hips, and your legs. But first, let's get rid of the chair. We're going to work with a sequence that we'll be doing on all fours like this. You have a couple of options for support. If this is bothersome for your knees or your ankles don't open up like this, you can place a blanket on the floor underneath your shins. Let the feet drop off the edge. That brings support through the whole shin and not just dropping weight into your knees. Now, some people find this is uncomfortable to be here for very long on their hands like this. Two suggestions. One, try to put the weight mostly in the index finger and thumb area of the wrist. This side of the wrist has more strength and support than this outer wrist. But secondly, you could also do some of this work on your forearms. And you can rest on your forearms. You can do this on the floor, but having something propped up under your forearms brings you just a little bit higher, so you're not going downhill quite as much. But either way is fine if you don't have blocks or something easily accessible. So, just for clarity, I'm going to move this so that you can clearly see what I'm doing. We're going to start on the hands and the shins with a neutral spine. So just finding neutral, that means the natural curves are present. And then we're going to let the pelvis rock back and forth. So I'm just letting the hips tip back and forth. And you can see my back moving, and if you go into your own body, you can feel how moving the pelvis back and forth, of course your back is attached, your spinal column is attached to your hips, so your back will be moving. But I'm really isolating the movement and initiating it from the hip sockets. This creates synovial fluid in the hip sockets, preparing the way, sort of priming the pump for really free, open, comfortable movement. We're going to let this now travel up the spinal column. So as I let my hips tip back, and if I had a tail, a long tail, I might be lifting my tail into the air or tucking the tail between the legs. So as we take this movement and make it bigger, I'm letting my tail tuck between the legs and letting that travel up my spine, through the mid-back and the upper back, and curling the chin in as if I'm hanging over a big ball. This is called flexion of the spinal column. Then we're going to let the tail lift, as if you're reaching your tail up in the air to wag it. And the spine unfolds right up through the mid-back, upper back. Your heart area lifts and your head lifts. This is extension of the spinal column. When I come here, I like to open the mouth and also release the jaw. Initiate each movement from your hips. So tuck the tail and then let the spine ripple into this flexed position. curling the chin in. And then starting from the tail, lifting it, letting the spine unfold from that flexion into extension. And you can coordinate this with your breathing if you like. As I exhale, I scoop the tail under, condensing the front body, curling inward, lifting the tail up, unfolding the front body as I'm breathing in. Keep your jaw soft. So let's come back to neutral, bringing the hips back to neutral and letting the spinal column follow with the head finally coming into place. We're going to move now through our sides. This is, I will call this lateral flexion. So to make it really easy, it helps if we extend one leg. It's really clear. If I extend my right leg out, and with my toes, I'm drawing a semicircle across to the left. And then I'm going to let my shoulder, my left shoulder, reach towards my left hip, and my left ear reaching toward my left shoulder. Notice I am not rotating my head like this. I'm not rotating the neck. I'm laterally flexing the neck, bringing the ear toward the shoulder. And then breathing in, bring the foot back. Coming back to neutral. Extend the left leg out. Let your toes trace a line over to the right side as far as you can. And feel how that draws your hips over into this tilt or tip to the right. And I'm taking my right shoulder toward my right hip, my right ear toward my right shoulder, opening up the left side of the neck and the whole left side of the torso. Just breathe normally here. Notice where your breath moves. And then on an in-breath, I'll bring the foot back and bring it back into place to neutral. Let's do that one more time. Extend the right leg out, trace it over to the left. Reach your left shoulder toward your left hip, your left ear toward your left shoulder, and let the right side of the neck lengthen. Enjoy that opening. The whole right side of the torso and the right hip. Breathing in to come back to neutral. Extend the left leg out, trace it over to the right. Curl your body sideways to the right. If you've ever seen a cat do this, like sometimes they come and they curl around your leg. And then breathing in, bringing the leg back, and place the legs back on the floor, coming back to neutral. You can do this without the leg. The leg just makes it really clear, and it also helps get into the hip and opening up this hip a bit. But it can look like this. I drop the tail a little bit and curl the hips, the tail reaching over to the left, my left hip and left shoulder coming toward each other. Left ear moving toward the shoulder. So from my base of the right skull all the way down through my hip on the right side is opening up. Breathing in back to neutral. Drop your tail a little and let's curl to the left. To the right. Your right hip is reaching towards your right shoulder to the right hip, right ear to the right shoulder. And if you turn your attention into the left half of the body, you can feel the left side opening up, receiving your breath. The right side condensing and squeezing like a sponge being squeezed out. and then back to neutral. Let's do that one more time. Drop the tail, curling to the left. As if you are a sponge, your left side is squeezing out all of the water that's in the sponge, and your right side is absorbing all of that water, expanding. Breathe in back to neutral. Breathe out, curling to the right. Squeeze your sponge of the right half of the body out. Let the left half of the body open and expand as if filling up with that water. And then we'll come back to neutral. So now we're going to do a twist. I'm taking my knees a little farther apart. I'm going to take the left hand underneath the right arm, across to the right side of the mat, as if my shoulder is reaching over to the right side of the mat, and curling the chin in so that I'm not resting on my ear. I'm really kind of on the back of my head, more toward the top. So you might find yourself looking at your right hip. Breathing normally, let your arm rest into the floor. To come out of this, press with the palm of the hand that's on the floor, pushing the floor away as you breathe in and come up. Right arm scooping under the left, bringing your chin in toward your chest as you twist. Let your right arm rest down into the floor. Normal breathing. When you're ready to come up, push with that left hand. Press the floor away as you breathe in and come up. One more time. Scoop the left arm under. Spiraling through the upper body, letting your left arm rest into the floor, letting your head rest into the floor. Normal breathing. And by normal breathing, I mean we're not doing anything fancy. We're just letting the breath breathe us. Press with your right hand to breathe in and come up. Exhale over to the other side. Pressing through the left hand, inhaling, bring yourself back up. And we'll do another twist. I'm going to bring my right knee forward. The left knee is just sliding back a little bit. The leg that's forward, I'm bringing that hand up, which means I'm turning toward the leg that's forward. The hand that's on the floor, I'm pushing the floor down so I can really open up through my chest. And breathe. And then let's bring that hand down. Switch the knees. So my left leg is forward. I'm going to bring my left arm up. Pushing the floor away with my right hand. Bring the left hand up. And breathe. And then exhaling that arm down one more time. Right knee is forward, the left leg is sliding back. Notice that I'm keeping my shins on the floor. I'm not curling the toes under, I'm not lifting a leg up. I want support from those shins so that I can twist. And most of the twist, of course, is happening through the rib cage. The position of your legs really helps the twist because it allows one hip to drop down and participate in the twist. And back to the front. Switch knees, push with the right hand, left knee is forward, left arm reaches up. And then coming back. If I was going to do just one of those things after a long sitting, so you don't have this much time, it would be that twist, one of those twists. I'm sitting for a long time and I'm slumped, find neutral spine and then explore some twists. That will immediately make you feel much better. Just energetically, it will help your mind come back to life, getting some breath in there, aligning the head over the spine, and then wringing out the body. Okay, so we're going to explore a little flexion extension play. And this is going to be initiated. So the last movements I was initiating from the hip sockets, particularly in that flexion extension part. This one we're going to initiate from what I call the pit of the belly. Deep in the lower belly is going to start the movement. I am going to put a blanket under my knees here because the floor is a little bit hard for my knees for this. Although I'm not really resting on my kneecap, but I am going to be rolling through it. So if you're on a carpet or something or you need some extra padding, feel free to take that. Because here I am curling my toes under and imagining that you have a ball in a deep pit of the belly. And I'm going to lift that ball up into my back body and then I'm going to drop it toward the floor. So if you lift that ball up into the back body, that imaginary ball in the pit of your belly, which could be your organs, and then release them toward the floor. You can see this is creating the same kind of movement in my hips as I was talking about when I was having you lift your tail and tuck your tail. I'm just initiating my movement from a different vision, which does actually create a little bit of different movement in my body. It's much more organic rather than the clarity of the bones when we're moving from the bones. Okay, so I'm going to draw up deep in the belly and push with my hands a bit and reach my hips back. Let the head drop down. And I'm going to kind of walk my hands out and feel this lovely opening in the back body. Notice I'm not sitting all the way down on my heels. I'm not diving into child pose. I'm just kind of doing a flexion through the spinal column and reaching back. Then from that pit of the belly, I'm going to rise up. Notice I'm letting my hands move forward. Bring the hips forward, and now I'm dropping that ball. And I want to get my hands right underneath my shoulders for support. Drop the ball that you were holding in the pit of your belly. Press your shoulder blades down and reach your heart up. And then to come back, I'm going to initiate it from the lower belly. So I'm imagining that I could suction that ball up off the floor into my back body, letting it take me up and back and stretching back, keeping that deep curl that I'm working with. So let's just go back and forth a little bit. You can do this at your own pace or you can follow me. But remember to let the belly lead the way. So the belly is like it's a hot air balloon inside my body, lifting me up. And now I'm going to release it. And just notice that I'm not letting my shoulder blades collapse up towards my ears. I'm pressing with my hands, drawing the shoulder blades down my back, reaching my ribs forward. I'm resting on my thighs. And then draw up through the lower belly, up toward the ceiling and back. Just breathe normally. If you find a pattern of breath that you'd like to do while you're doing this, that works for you, that's great. I'm just making sure that I'm completely exhaling and breathing. And initiating the movement from my belly. It's where it starts. It's what's taking me forward and into this delicious back bend. And then it's lifting me out of the back bend and taking me back into this delicious forward curling inward. Opening the back body, opening the front body. Closing the front body, opening the back body, opening the front body, condensing the back body. Good, and then let's come back to neutral. Ooh, that feels good. All right, so we're gonna finish with 2 supported poses. Very powerful work, working with a bolster and surrendering muscular effort, surrendering action. It has an amazing effect on our nervous system, much deeper than many people realize. So I highly encourage you to do this. So I'm gonna leave this blanket here and place a bolster in this orientation, sitting on the side of my hip, both knees facing the same way, and I'm going to turn my torso to face the bolster. Notice I'm not staying sitting on my sitting bone. As I turn, my hip kind of slides so that my sitting bones are facing in the direction of the wall back there, and I'm resting on the side of my hip, and I let my chest turn to face the bolster. This doesn't work so well with glasses. And I rest down on the bolster. So this is a nice supported twist. I'm going to give some suggestions. If you're happy here, just hang out. And if you're not happy, come up and try some of these options. Some people, this is too much for their shoulders to be out like this. So if you elevate the bolster with, a couch cushion, a pillow, a yoga block, a rolled up blanket, you can let your arms drop down more. That actually feels quite lovely. Notice I'm tucking in the chin so that my neck feels very neutral and not collapsed. Soften the weight of the body into the bolster. With each exhalation, surrender the weight of your body to the support, to the floor, and to the earth. Feel the movement of your breath as you rest here. Notice where your body receives the inhalation. And as you're exhaling, it's another opportunity to let go of another layer of holding or tension. To come out of this, we slide the hands back so they're beneath the shoulders. I'm pushing the floor away, and notice that I'm letting the head hang as I come up. I'm going to really kind of keep that quiet that I began to develop as I switch to the other side. And just know that for demonstration purposes, I'm keeping this a little bit shorter, but you could stay here for 5 minutes, maybe even 10. We'll do the other side. So I'm just spinning around, bringing the hip right up to next to the bolster. And I'll take this out so you can see it the way I initially showed. Resting on the side of your hip so you're not on your sitting bones, and spiraling the torso to face the bolster so that your chest is resting on the bolster. Not too many people can be comfortable turning the head away from the knees. You could certainly try it, but if it's not 100% comfortable, I don't recommend it, because you'll end up having an uncomfortable neck tomorrow, and that's not so great. So let your head face your knees, and make sure that this arm behind you is not propping you up, that you can really let go into the bolster. And again, you can prop up your bolster, and notice how far back I put that support so that it's holding my chest. And as you rest there, I am going to demonstrate for anybody who's feeling discomfort in their hips in this pose, how to support yourself. You could take a blanket, a bolster, if you have an extra bolster, a pillow of some sort, and you would place that, I'm going to show it this way, between your knees. All right? So I'll do that on the other side. With each exhalation, you're surrendering the weight of your body into the support, into the earth. And observe where you feel the in-breath arising. You might notice it more in your sides, in your back body. Then to come out of this, slide your hands back beneath your shoulders. As you push the floor away, let your head hang as you bring yourself up. Taking some of that resting posture with you, keeping it in your nervous system. We are elevating or stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part that is about deep relaxation and all the involuntary functions of the body, which includes your immune function, your digestion, your metabolism. So we're going to do 2 more poses. One is a back arc. And again, I'm going to show options. These bolsters are kind of flat. I prefer rounder bolsters, but this is what I've got. But for many people, this is actually too much. So I'm going to show the pose with this bolster, and then I'm going to show an alternative if this is too much for you. And this, by the way, is my eye bag alternative. I'll show you how to use that. So I'm resting my hips. I'm not sitting on the floor. I'm resting the sacrum against the edge of the bolster, lengthening my spine over the bolster and dropping back. So I have this really kind of neutral back bend, even back bend, where my hips are dropping down on one side, my shoulders on the other. My proportions with this bolster work so that my hips don't touch the floor, and you can see my shoulders aren't really touching either. But it really depends on what back arcing is like for you. And if you do a lot of sitting, the way I was sitting in that chair at the beginning, this could be way too much. It could feel like too much. So I am going to show an alternative. I think I'll show two alternatives, but if you're happy here, I would just cover up the eyes. Stretch your arms out to the sides. Some people are happy with arms overhead. And hang out here and surrender to the bolster and to the earth. Let your ribs open up so you can see how these lower ribs are flaring apart. That's a good back bend. And if you're happy here and you've set yourself up, then stay. I will show some alternatives. So to come out of this, I want the top of my sacrum to press down and roll to one side. Always come out by rolling to your side. You could replace the bolster with a blanket. So just one blanket may be good for you. And alternatively, if you have something bigger than the blanket, like that bolster, because just knowing that working with people, this is often too much back arc for people, you could scoot your hips up onto the bolster a little bit. So my lower back has a little less back bend in it. It's a little more supported. It's still a back arc. So we're going to lay here for just a moment. I'm going back to the more even back bend. The other one is more like a Setu Bandha bridge, and it's fine if that's what feels comfortable to you. So once you get a setup that works for you, take a nice full breath and feel how your ribs just expand open in the front body. Long, slow out breath, surrendering the weight of the body to the bolster or the blankets, the floor and the earth. Soften your jaw. This pose is the antidote to sitting in the Western civilized world. This is the opposite of what we do most of our day. Soften your jaw, release the tongue away from the teeth. And Just observe the flow of your breath and the release of your muscular effort. So you could stay here for 1 minute, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes for an advanced practitioner. When you come out of it, slide your arms down by your sides and fold the hands in over the ribs. If you're in this more even back bend, scoot to where I was suggesting for the Sektibandha, the bridge pose. Get your hips a little more up on the bolster. Press the top of your sacrum down into the bolster. That means your tail kind of goes up so that you can neutralize your lumbar spine as you roll onto your side. Softly open your eyes, and with your hands beneath the shoulders, push the floor away, letting your head hang as you come up. And now we're going to do, of course, Shavasana. So I'm placing this bolster so it'll be under my knees. And I'm taking a folded blanket. At home, you might have a pillow that you like to use, something that's going to support your head and neck. And if you like, something to cover your eyes, which just kind of amplifies the deliciousness of the letting go and surrendering into doing nothing. All right. Also, cover up, like put a blanket over you, because staying warm contributes to being able to relax. So I'm going to lie down. I'm actually not going to teach this, but if you're familiar with it from taking classes with me, I'm scooping my blanket under and around my neck and head. So it's this little cradle. Maybe I'll do another video where I describe how to do that. As I extend my legs out, I want to make sure that my lumbar spine has its neutral, natural curve. And I was just sitting and then laid back. So my pelvis is still slightly tipped this way. So I'm going to release that by bringing one knee up and crossing over the midline. Simple as that. And then the other, and as you cross over, what you're doing is releasing the skin and the musculature away from your lower back so that your hips rest really neutral on the floor. I like to let my hands rest on the pinky finger side of the hand, just like the palms of the hands are facing the body. And then, of course, cover up the eyes. As you settle in, take a deep breath and exhale any tension, any holding into the earth. Exhaling away any unnecessary mental activity. Let your mind, let your attention Focus on the sensations of support beneath you and surrendering your weight to that support. And then follow that gentle flow of your breath, that subtle, quiet flow into a very subtle, quiet place.